sound. Or speed, rather.
Recording.
Amy, are you also recording?
I'm unmuting her again.
Okay.
I am recording.
Awesome. All right, then let's open the house and... hold on one second. Hana,
Yep.
Can you turn off the AC? We have it run like... Yeah, okay, there we go. All right, let's open the house and have a good show.
Thank you.
We are ready to start. House lights down. Thank you for coming to You Are Here, a performance for a dispersed audience in a digital here and now. A digital here and now in the form of over 50 small tiles. Look at all our screens, all our different homes, our different lives. It's like a wall of moving paintings, perfectly framed by Zoom. I'm curious to know where you currently physically are. Could you write in the chat where you are watching from? There's a chat function on the bottom of your Zoom screen. San Francisco, Cincinnati, Long Beach, Berlin, Culver City, State College, Malibu. Oh my God, it's so fast. Nebraska, Sacramento, Tbilisi, La Jolla, Groningen, Silver Lake, North Hills, Amsterdam, New York, another Tbilisi, LA, Mid-City, Cardiff, Orange County, San Diego. So our bodies are spread out over all these places, but our minds are together, or somewhat together. In a way, this is now our theater, our third space of encounter, our attempt at gathering despite spatial distance. And I say attempt because I haven't really figured out what it means to be virtually present. Whenever I'm in a virtual space, a Zoom space like this one, I have the tendency to spread myself over many other virtual spaces. I check my email at the same time. I read the news at the same time. Or have this really stupid game on my phone. It's called Two Dots. I uninstalled it last year and then I reinstalled it. And then this morning, I'm at level 1337. Physically, I can only be in one place, but virtually, I just like to spread myself all over. Physically, I am here, in my home. These are the coordinates. It's the 1500 block of South New Hampshire Avenue, in Pico Union, in Los Angeles, in California, in the United States, on the continent of North America, on planet Earth, in the solar system, in the Milky Way, in the universe. That is how I would write my return address as a child when I would send mail, just in case it got lost. And, well, this is my stage, my domestic stage. You're looking at the door of a walk-in closet over there. If you go there, there's a bathroom and then the bedroom. The kitchen is over there, the living room, the front porch, the yard. I have upstairs neighbors, and downstairs is a basement. It's rare to have a basement in LA. And these 1,100 square feet are roughly the place where I have been since mid-March. I went from being on planes almost every month to calling AAA to see if they would reduce my auto insurance premium because I was barely even driving my car anymore. They actually sent me a $50 check. On some days it felt like an adventure to walk all the way from the kitchen to the sidewalk in front of the house. But at the same time, I know that what is happening is a global event. That by being by ourselves, we are contributing to maybe the largest communal effort the world has ever undertaken. A communal effort that asks us to be separate, to not gather, to not touch, to not dance, to not move through the places that we usually move through. So in a way, this solitary moment in time connects us, connects places. Ski resorts in Italy suddenly seem tightly connected to cities in China. People are intentionally missing planes to protect loved ones. And we are deeply reconsidering what it means to breathe the same air. Our lives and actions here, physical here, and those living far away are more entangled than ever. I can somehow grasp that, the scale of it, in theory, but I'm also just here, just home, in a digital little box, looking at other digital little boxes. Can I, for those of you who can move their screen, could you turn your screen to a window? Can we see what you see when you look outside in Tbilisi and San Diego and Cincinnati, Amsterdam? Wow. Thank you. That's really nice. You can come back to whatever is the most comfortable position to watch. I miss the outside. I miss getting lost. I miss seeing other places. And so while we were all alone together, I began wandering all over the world from my computer at home in Google Earth, a tantalizing surrogate for real life. And this is where I began. This is my front door, the house that I live in. But in 2014, before I actually lived in it, Google Street View has not been here in 6 years. I'm not sure who the two people are in front of the house. Do you know who lived in your house before you? Did they leave any traces? And if you leave, what traces might they find of you? I live on the bottom floor. The yard looks actually very different right now. Lots of plants. There are papaya trees over here. And so from my house in 2014, I began scrolling. I began scrolling out of my street into the world. I think that I've always been a gatherer of places in some way, had a fascination for place. Memories of places, places I come from, places I've been to, places I forgot. If I would write an autobiography, it would probably be just a list of places that I lived in and that live in me. This is an image of my family in Tunis in 1961. This is taken hours before they took the boat to migrate from Tunisia to France. This is my mom with her coat ready for the European cold. And so when I meet other people, I'm sort of spatially curious of them. I want to know where they grew up or what the route was like from their home to school, you know? The kind of route that you walk or bike 1,000 times, the one that's in the square mile of your childhood, the one that you can dream with your eyes closed. Do you remember what that route was for you? If you remember and if you want to, could you draw it in the air with your fingers? You can close your eyes if it helps. Sometimes it helps with remembering. This is the route that I biked as a child countless times. Exit the yard, make a left, make a right, make a left, go over the bridge, make a right, go under the overpass, and get to school. This is the overpass. It's an overpass like many others, but when I see this, I feel a mixture of ecstatic joy and deep disappointment. I was maybe 8 or 9 and feeling lonely at school. And on daytime TV, there were these ads for fuzzy toy worms, and these ads promised that these worms would be the best friend you ever had. So I really wanted one badly. It was a solution. And I remember saving up money and biking to the small mall for the first time all by myself, full of excitement. And I went underneath this overpass. The road goes down, so if you go down really fast, you don't have to pedal up. On my way to buy a fuzzy worm, my new best friend. I picked the orange worm. It turned out to be not really a good friend. This is in the Netherlands, 8 feet below sea level, a middle-class neighborhood from the 1970s, surrounded by wetlands, protected by levees. This little route was maybe my first map of my world, from which the rest expanded. Today, I will take you through my subjective atlases, my incomplete attempts at capturing the world. This is a road trip, a road performance, a travelogue at home. Google Earth is our vehicle, and my keyboard is our gas pedal. In these past months, I've been going a lot to the homes of the people I miss, trying to get as close as I can, see if I can find them if I linger around long enough. This is the back of my parents' house. It's now been over a year since I hugged them. They were probably home when this picture was taken. Their car is right here, so I think they're home. This is my brother's front door. I almost feel like I could just walk in, sit down for dinner, just ring this doorbell. My best friend and his husband live behind this window on the 5th floor. We still speak on the phone a few times a week. But yeah, Google Street View rarely ever gives you the people that you're hoping to find, apart for some people. Some people are everywhere. I actually did find one person I know in Street View. My husband. Here he is, sitting behind the fence. This is in our sublet just a few weeks after he had moved from the Netherlands to LA. You cannot tell from this image, but at this moment he is in complete culture shock, not understanding at all where he has landed, crying himself to sleep at night. The copyright of this captured moment is with Google. This is an image from spring 2015. If you go to the same address now, he's not there anymore. Erased. This virtual world may pretend to be immediate, but we are looking at what was. What has been, what has passed, a memory of the world, oftentimes a memory that no one really had. And so when I cannot find my people in this digital world, I turn to the places that I long for, the places I miss. I look at the images and imagine the flavors, the thickness of the air, the sounds of the streets. I almost trick myself into believing that I can see everything, teletransport, be everywhere I want to be at the same time. This is my late grandmother's apartment in Paris, a social housing building from the 1960s. The building is now being renovated into condos. This capture is old. But if I look at this picture, I can still smell the food coming out of her kitchen window. Couscous or quince marmalade. For a moment I thought that the person on the right might be my mother's brother. It wasn't. And I traveled back in time to the country house of my aunt, where I spent endless summers as a child. The kind of summer where you forget what day of the week it is or even what month, and where I would pick cherries from this tree with my favorite cousin. The smell of this place for me is merguez barbecue. The house was sold by my aunt in 2014 and apparently is now for sale again. In my virtual journeys, I also go to the places that I know that I will never be in real life. Places I've only heard of, can vaguely imagine. Frozen lakes, hidden vaults, remote train stations. Can I ask you something? Is there a place that you have always dreamt of seeing, but haven't seen yet? Maybe, can you grab your phone if it's nearby? We're gonna spread ourselves around virtually a little bit. Can you grab your phone and pull up a picture of that place that you want to visit, but have not been? The first one that comes up. I'll give you some time to find it. And once you've found it, can you hold it up against the camera so that we can see it and look at each other's? Look at this. It's like a mosaic of desire. There is one place that I try to go back to regularly, but Google Street View has not been there yet. I can see it only on satellite. It's the village where my mother was born in rural Tunisia, Souk El Khamis, which means market on Thursday because the only distinctive characteristic of the village is that there is a market on Thursday. And when you take the road down to the next village, you get to market on a Wednesday. This is how close I can get with a satellite. I zoom in and then it just stops. Pixels of Tunisian farm fields. We made a trip with my mother to Tunisia and Souk El Khamis in 2010, just before the Arab Spring. It was more of a quest than a relaxing family vacation. I saw how my mother was hoping to find her idealized childhood untouched. Instead, we found a town that had grown out of proportion, rampant unemployment, social tensions, barely any trace of her previous life. And in my mother, I saw a woman looking for ghosts, trying to find tangible remains of her evaporated memories, looking for people who would faintly recognize the name of my grandfather after we had said it multiple times. We navigated the village with this map that my uncle drew for us. This is where your picture was taken. It says, Palestine Street, ? This is where we would play the ball game. Our home. That trip, I had to talk my mother out of buying the dilapidated structure that was the house that she was born in. Maybe I have inherited it from her. The chasing of places we cannot be. This is more or less the first complete atlas of the world. The whole world in one glance. Cities on here are indicated with 3 A-frame buildings, some mountains, some rivers. So much not depicted. So much left to imagine. Do you remember how we would imagine other places before we could pull up pictures on our phones? And I actually called this atlas a theater, Theatrum Orbis Terrarum, theater of the orb of the world, because the Greek word theater means a place for seeing. We have our eyes for seeing. But our human field of vision is actually quite limited. When we turn our head to the left or to the right, it sort of ends quickly. Also, when we go down or up, it doesn't really extend very far. If we squint, we can manage to see the tip of our nose, but we cannot see everything that's around us at one glance. But then there were cameras and satellites and hundreds of thousands of miles of paved roads and cars. And our whole notion of what a map is and what we should see on it changed. Our whole notion of how we imagine the rest of the world changed. And so in a way, these Google Street View drivers have superpowers. With their cameras with 9 eyes, taking 15 snapshots every 2 seconds, capturing one large photograph of the globe while just driving around. But also trading our privacy, selling our privacy for the illusion of free information. Although some of us seem to have their privacy a lot more protected than others. The drivers are covering the Earth's grounds like modern cartographers or data collectors or spies. They assume the position of the random witness, the accidental witness, one that sees but never intervenes, because whatever happens, the car and the driver don't stop. Whatever happens at the moment that a car passes is what is captured on the map. The Street View drivers are supposed to remain invisible for us, the only ones out of the view of the 9 cameras, as if they're just an objective viewpoint. But if you look carefully, you will find them. Sometimes they meet each other at the end of a road in Alaska. Sometimes they clean the camera so all of us can see the images better. They get stopped by the police in Lagos, or they get stuck in the sand, and that is where the map ends. The job title is not actually Google Street View driver. It's usually vaguely listed as a temp job on Craigslist as city block driver. You get paid per driven mile, and people are recruited locally to drive around their own surroundings. One driver anonymously confessed that they had to drive around their old hometown, got very nostalgic and covered every corner diligently. Then, they had to go to a nearby town that had been the scene of a bad previous relationship. That town had already been extensively covered some years before, and because the driver had mostly bad memories there, they just made a quick detour, covered the main monument, and quickly left again, leaving the rest of the town's capturing unchanged in the past. It makes me wonder why my street has not been updated in 6 years. Driving these cars is not a full-time job. People's contracts are terminated when they have covered their own area. There's a site that announces very, very vaguely when an area will be mapped. And they're scheduled to capture the town where my parents live in the next 3 months. So if I do this performance later in the year, this image will be replaced already. In the US, their only announced area of coverage is Santa Clara, California, sometime between June and December 2020. So, Google has most of their offices here, and as you can see, it is pretty well covered. The only things not covered are the Google campuses. The company offers a view of the world, but they do not include themselves in that view. They want to remain unseen. So what they're doing here in Santa Clara are experiments with self-driving Street View cars. No more human compasses or emotions when mapping, taking drivers' personal memories out of it. Because it's not about what's captured or how it's captured, but that as much as possible is captured. There is this one paragraph story titled On Exactitude in Science by the Argentinian writer Jorge Luis Borges. It takes place in a long ago, faraway empire where, and I quote from the story, "The art of cartography attained such perfection that a map of a single province occupied the entirety of a city, and a map of the empire the entirety of a province. Google has now mapped 6 million miles of the planet. Depending on how you look at it, that's either quite a lot, like 12 trips to the moon and back, or not much at all. Only 10% of the world's 60 million miles of road. If you wanted to take one picture every 10 meters across all of the Earth's surface, you would need 1 trillion pictures. Google is about a quarter in, and the aim is to capture everything, the whole world. In Borges' story, it doesn't end well with the map or the people that live in it. At some point, the map of the empire becomes so big that it achieves a scale of 1 to 1. And at that point, it just fades into irrelevance. And the last line of the story reads, "In the deserts of the West, still today, there are tattered ruins of that map, inhabited by animals and beggars." Sometimes I look at the globe and imagine all the movement. The planes, the trains, the buses, the boats, the cars, the pedestrians crisscrossing it all at the same time. Or how we were crisscrossing it in a way. One of the reasons we may be in our homes now is because we moved so much. I've traveled quite a bit. I've been lucky. But I'm still not sure when you can say that you really know a place. When have you really been there? Do you know the feeling when you first arrive in a place that you've never been and you don't know yet what to focus on? And you go from the airport, an airport like this, to your hotel or your Airbnb. You hope it's not far. You look out of the window of your taxi or bus, and slowly the airport transforms into the outer industrial area, which transforms into the outer suburbs, which transforms into the inner suburbs, which transforms into the center. You go and you walk around, and it's pleasant. You look for the cafes, the parks, the paintings. If you're like me, you probably check pictures and menus beforehand online. You maybe know already what you're gonna see. And maybe after 2 days you get adjusted. You can walk around without relying on a map. But soon after, you leave. I often cherish the memory of these towns that I barely brush against, my own indecision, my hesitant footsteps, my gaze which didn't know quite yet what to focus on, how to anchor. But then, what does it mean to put down roots, to really carve out the place where you belong? When you go past that first infatuation, if there even is one, if you have that choice, and you have to learn to live with the possibility of hurricanes or earthquakes, heat, humidity, cold, inequality. Most of us live somewhere in a country, in a town in that country, in a neighborhood in that town, in a street in that neighborhood, in a building in that street. We have difficulty changing, mostly. I even have difficulty changing my furniture around. Moving houses is exhausting. So when we can, we stay in the same place. We miss it when we leave. Moving is a form of resilience. Something extremely serious needs to happen for us to really move far, to leave behind a home. War, natural disasters, maybe pandemics. What Street View doesn't capture here is the alley behind my home, behind my street. There are several people who live there who inhabit that space. Some more permanent, and some leave and then come back. There may be no address, no walls, but it is their street. The alley is also used for what is called eviction trash. When an apartment is emptied after an eviction in the area, couches, beds, chairs, sheets, whatever was left by the evicted tenants is dumped in the alley. You can actually see it with a satellite. It gets dumped, cleaned by the city a few weeks later, but a new dump always follows. Lately, there have been a lot of dumps. So if totality is Google's goal, why did they drive here, but not through the alley? Trucks drive through here all the time. Why is it left out? Once you spend a longer time in this map, you will find its borders. Patterns of absence start to appear. Everywhere where there is no asphalt, everywhere where the government shuns Google, everywhere where there is violence. Google doesn't let us see what is remote, what is in crisis. We only have satellite images of Afghanistan or Syria. We here cannot see the houses, the people on street level. It is neatly left out. And this is how this map works. We see so much, and we see nothing at all. We do not really see the impact of what is happening in the world. If people see images of our streets a few years from now, will they really see how we lived through this moment? There might be some people wearing face masks, but even those you won't see because faces will be blurred. At this moment, 500,000 families in Los Angeles are facing the threat of eviction. So, what will our streets look like a year from now? Will these families show up in Google Street View? While working on this performance, I've often wondered what information is being captured of me while I travel online to the places and the people that I miss. Even right now, I'm live on Google Earth right now. How my nostalgia for cherry trees and underpasses is being transformed into sellable data and targeted ads. Woman, almost in her 40s, left-leaning politics, is not allowed to vote in the US, lives in a 2-bedroom rental apartment, has a second-hand car, has disposable income, spends it mostly on travel, compulsive buyer of kitchen equipment, specifically likes clothing with a V-neck, ethnicity somewhat unclear but passes as white, into stone fruit, definitely has 2 cats. I'm trying to ask these questions about my streets, the landscapes that inhabit us, but I'm unable to ask and explore those questions without being complicit in the actions of Google. With every nostalgic click, I keep the all-seeing eye alive. The Dutch artist Armando proposed this idea that there are sites that are guilty. Guilty landscapes, he called it. landscapes that are guilty. Sites that were witnesses to murder, violence, suffering, and in a way are thus complicit in covering up what has happened there with grass and trees, bees, the usual mundane activities. Can sites be guilty? Can search engines be guilty? When the lockdown just began, I thought a lot about what it would mean for our right to assemble, to protest, since gathering in public space had become a hazard, but at the same time, so had our leadership. Little did I know that a few weeks later, the largest civil rights movement in recent history would emerge and reclaim our public space. Cities change so radically when they become the sites of protest. The nondescript gray areas where you usually only quickly drive by, that are just quick passageways, become places you inhabit physically, with your blistered feet against the concrete, with chants, unison gestures. Protests, the reclaiming of roads, make these unassuming places, these gaps of bad urban design suddenly matter, important, more specific, alive. And visible and invisible borders in neighborhoods or cities that seem permanent are questioned, challenged, changed. I've actually removed the lines that indicate borders on this map. Google calls the map with borders exploration style, and the one without, the clean map style. It's just one click in the program to remove them. Click, and they're gone. Removed are the imaginary limits that are never really on the actual line it aims to represent, but more a few hundred feet on either side. And when you zoom out, the line becomes irrelevant. But the line is enough to change everything, even the landscape. It is the same air, the same earth, but the road is no longer the same. The road signs are not the same, shops are not the same. Even loaves of bread are not the same. Can we rethink how we order the world? Can we rethink how we move through it? I could travel this map just following a given degree of latitude, just circling around. I could travel all the states in the US in alphabetical order. I'd go to Alabama, then to Alaska, then Arizona, then Arkansas. I could go to all the towns that have the same name, to all the 1,716 San Joses of this world, or the 542 Hosenabads. The surprise of traveling, the disappointment of traveling, the idea that you have overcome distance, have erased time, are far away. Or maybe the rediscovery of what you've never seen, what you didn't expect, what you didn't imagine. What amount of space can our eyes hope to take in between the moment we are born and the moment we leave the earth? How many square inches of the planet will the worn soles of our shoes have touched? What can we really know of the world? In a sense, every place is unfathomable, infinite, impossible to really fully describe. Because it exists as countless versions, because no two people really live in quite the same place, but side by side in parallel universes that may or may not intersect. Because the minute you map a place, that map becomes obsolete. Most of you are in your homes, right? I've discovered things about my home in the past couple of months that I didn't know before. A really stupid example, we have these large built-in linen drawers. It's an old house. And suddenly I asked myself, how come they extend so far into the wall? All of our other walls are narrow. What is this secret cavity that they disappear into? And then after 5 years of living here, I realized, oh, it's because it's under the stairwell that my upstairs neighbors use. I began to see my home as a vast country with places that I go to all the time, the roads well traveled, but also the forgotten margins, the back alleys. In the space where you are now, what is the square foot that you spend most time in? What is the downtown of the space where you are now? Can you point to it? And what is the square foot that you spend the least amount of time in? The uncharted territory. Can you point to that? So, the room where I am in now has been our guest room for the past 5 years, and I actually barely spent any time in here until we started working on this performance. But I'm currently expecting our first child, and we are slowly turning it into a nursery. And in the process of doing that, I have discarded most of my travel guidebooks, my Lonely Planets. They were stored right up there. I threw most of them out. They were really outdated. And I have been trying to find a globe lamp. For some reason, I was comforted by the idea that our child would see this small blue light in a sea of darkness at night. And so I've been looking for one, but I cannot find the right one. If you go to Amazon, this is the first one that comes up. It's the really generic one. It's called the Blue Ocean Educational Raised Relief Political Globe, I guess. It's $64.95, free shipping and returns. I could get it by August 21st. But it's very generic, and I don't like the base of it. And so I began looking on Craigslist. And I found this one, this vintage one. The light still works. It is $150. It's in Burbank. And then I realized that because it's from the 1960s, the Soviet Union is still on it, which then made me think, what does it mean to have this bordered object in a child's bedroom? And of course, Amazon felt this hesitation at the tip of my fingers on the keyboard and started targeting me with a moon lamp. The Mythodon moon lamp, 16 colors, LED, 3D, print, cool moon night light with stand, remote touch control and USB, rechargeable gift for women, baby, kids, birthday party, home decor. It's 3.9 inch, $17.88, free shipping. I could get it by Tuesday. And these 16 colors. We haven't chosen yet between the Earth and the Moon. Behind the question of the globe is really the question, what kind of world my child will be born in? How will they get to know it? How will they move through it? What will be my market on Thursday that I will try to show in vain 3 decades from now? Maybe it's here. Will the world feel more mysterious because taking planes will be less common? Or will they mostly live in a digital world? Know the rest of the planet through images on the internet? Live in a nostalgia for what lays ahead, for the unseen? I don't know. I will start here. Begin with where we are. This room, the walk-in closet, the bathroom, the bedroom, the kitchen, the living room, front porch, the yard, our upstairs neighbors, the basement, the alley, our street. Thank you for being with us today. This is the team of You Are Here. Hana came on production design, Jonathan Snipes on sound and music. Thank you so much for your virtual presence. Please check out the other performances that are part of the Without Walls digital programming at La Jolla Playhouse. And have a great rest of your day or evening or night, wherever you are.